Your path to salvation is one that will be difficult to reach.
Warner Brothers is diving back into the apocalyptic world with Will Smith for I Am Legend 2. Remember the first movie? Yeah, that gem from 2007 based on Richard Matheson's classic novel? Well, it was a big hit, and Will Smith totally rocked it. So here's the scoop on the sequel. We don't have a ton of details yet, but we know it's happening and is taking inspiration from The Last of Us. But this may prove to be a hindrance, not a help. We'll discuss that later in the video, so stick around for that. So the sequel was officially announced back in March 2022, and Akiva Goldsman, who penned the first movie, is back at it again for this one. So remember how we were all wondering if the sequel to I Am Legend would ever happen? Well, guess what? It's still on track. According to Deadline, back in February 2023, the project is alive and kicking. And not only that, but there's some exciting news about the direction it's heading. Akiva Goldsman spilled the beans about a new deal with Warner Brothers, and it sounds like they've got some seriously cool stuff in the works. One of the projects? Yep, you guessed it, I Am Legend 2. And Michael B. Jordan is joining Will Smith for this mutant-filled adventure. But hold on to your seats because there's more. While we're all eager to know who's going to helm this epic, the director's chair is still up for grabs. Francis Lawrence, who directed the first movie, has expressed interest, but nothing's set in stone yet. In a chat with comicbook.com, Lawrence mentioned he's chatted with Goldsman about it, but it seems like things are still in the early stages. He's got his hands full brainstorming for Constantine 2. Now, fast forward to December 2023, and we've got some fresh news straight from the Red Sea International Film Festival. Will Smith himself confirmed that a new script for the sequel is ready to roll. And get this, he's got a chat lined up with Michael B. Jordan to discuss it further. So, everyone's been buzzing about it. Is Will Smith returning for I Am Legend 2? Since the idea of a sequel started floating around, Will Smith's name has been firmly attached to the project. In the first film, he played Dr. Robert Neville, the guy who ends up being the supposed last man on Earth after a nasty virus outbreak turns everyone into savage monsters. Now, here's the kicker. In the original theatrical cut, Neville meets his end. But hold up, there's an alternate ending floating around, and it's the one they're rolling with for the sequel. In this version, Neville survives, just like in the book the movie's based on. Smith himself was initially hesitant about revisiting the role, but after hearing the latest pitch for the sequel, he was all in. He said, "The idea came up. I can't talk about it yet, but it's a really cool concept, and Michael B. Jordan was a part of creating the idea. It was one of those I was going to leave alone, and then I heard the idea. But that might work. I think we can do that." Now, here's a fun fact. Initially, they were toying with the idea of a prequel, focusing on Smith's character before the whole mutant mess. But that got scrapped around 2009. Director Francis Lawrence explained on a podcast why they ditched the prequel idea, saying, "It just felt forced to do a prequel. We've done The Last Man on Earth. He died at the end of the movie. We can't do it again." Makes sense, right? Now, here's the other burning question. Is Michael B. Jordan joining the cast of I Am Legend 2? Yep, you heard it right. Alongside the big announcement about the sequel, there's a fresh face stepping into the franchise. None other than Michael B. Jordan. You know him from Black Panther and Creed. He's jumping into the post-apocalyptic action alongside Will Smith. Apparently, Jordan played a big role in getting the sequel off the ground. Word has it, his pitch for the story was so convincing that it persuaded Will Smith to sign back on. As for Jordan's character in the film, it's still a bit of a mystery, but there's some speculation swirling around. Remember that settlement at the end of the first movie? It hinted at more survivors out there besides just Robert Neville and a handful of others we saw in the first flick. So Jordan could be playing another survivor from that New York settlement, possibly teaming up with Robert for the sequel. Who knows, maybe the torch of the franchise will even be passed from Smith to Jordan in this upcoming installment. With that, let's dive into the alternate ending of I Am Legend and what it means for the sequel. Now, if you've only caught the theatrical cut of the movie, you might be scratching your head about how a sequel could even happen. In that version, Will Smith's character, Dr. Robert Neville, meets his end while battling mutant creatures, ensuring the safety of a cure he'd developed. But hold on to your hats, because there's an alternate ending in the mix. This ending, which closely follows the original 1954 novel, takes a different turn. Instead of sacrificing himself, Neville manages to dodge the mutant horde, leaving him alive and kicking. Well, as much as one can be in the midst of an apocalypse. And that's the key detail: Neville's still around and ripe for a sequel. According to writer Akiva Goldsman, this alternate ending is now considered the official canon. He spilled the beans about the sequel, mentioning that they're going back to the roots of the original Matheson book and building upon that alternate ending. Producer John Moan teased fans with the promise of an incredibly cool story for the sequel. According to him, it's an idea that got Will Smith, Akiva Goldsman, and Michael B. Jordan super hyped to dive back into the world of I Am Legend. And get this, it's all based on their creative minds cooking up something fresh and exciting. And guess what? They're drawing inspiration from the popular PlayStation game and HBO series The Last of Us. Picture a world where nature has started to reclaim what humanity left behind. Pretty cool, right? Especially when you think about how that'll look in iconic spots like New York City. But wait, there's more! Goldsman hinted at a deeper exploration of the themes from the original novel by Richard Matheson. Think about it. What happens when humans aren't calling the shots anymore? It's all about exploring that shift in power dynamics, which could lead to some seriously thought-provoking stuff. Now, as I said at the start, I Am Legend 2 is officially in the works, and it's drawing inspiration from The Last of Us. But hold on a sec, this might not be the smoothest move for the story. In The Last of Us, those creepy crawlies are controlled by a fungus, which pretty much turns them into mindless, hive-minded creatures. They're all about spreading the infection without much in the way of smarts. On the flip side, the Dark Seekers from I Am Legend, they're a whole different ballgame. These guys are clever, setting traps, sharing emotions, and even holding grudges. So, trying to model the sequel's villains after The Last of Us might not be the best move. Plus, in The Last of Us, the focus on human villains works like a charm, adding layers of complexity to the story. But in I Am Legend, it's the Dark Seekers who steal the show with their sheer numbers, aggression, and superhuman abilities. They're a force to be reckoned with, making them far riskier opponents than any human could be. So while borrowing some inspiration from The Last of Us sounds cool, going too far might just dilute what makes I Am Legend's enemies so unique. After all, we're talking about creatures who thrive in the darkness, ready to strike at a moment's notice. It's a delicate balance, and one worth keeping in mind as the sequel takes shape.